I would like to start with a quote of Helen Keller. "The public must learn that the blind man is neither a genius, a freak, nor an idiot. He has a mind that can be educated, and hands that can be trained, and ambitions which are right for him to strive to realize, and it is our duty to help him make the best of himself so that he can win light through work." End of quote. Why Helen Keller? Other than the fact that I am in complete awe of her, we share the same passion for wanting equal rights and opportunities for the blind and the disabled. If I can make a difference by changing one person's attitude and perception that the blind are incapable, by giving them employment or the opportunity to be all that they can be, then I have achieved my goal. Because of the work of Helen Keller and since, we have made huge strides in educating and training of the blind and disabled. Where we fall short is educating the public and changing the stereotyping. We still have a large number of highly educated, capable people sitting at home collecting government checks. Because at this time, unemployment amongst the blind alone is like 70%. And all they want to do is earn a living and support their families, which is the right of every human being. I started researching Helen Keller because of her work for the blind and the impact that she had on lions. You ask most people if they know who Helen Keller was, and they might reply, "Wasn't she that deaf-blind girl in the movie The Miracle Worker?" Keller was so much more than that. She worked tirelessly her entire life to improve services and opportunities for the deaf, the blind, the poor, the mistreated, the wounded of 2 wars, and the handicapped everywhere. At the time of her death, Helen was widely compared to a saint. The New York Times referred to her as a symbol of the indomitable human spirit. Mark Twain called Helen the most extraordinary woman since Joan of Arc. I believe that she possessed one of the most beautiful minds and spirits in American history, one that we should not forget. I have put together a short bio that I hope will help prevent in a small way a great loss of one of the most admirable and appealing heroes. Everyone, young and old, should know about this compellingly human, deeply spiritual, and unfailing courageous woman whom has begun to reside from American consciousness in recent years. Helen Keller was born June 27, 1880, and died in her sleep at the age of 87, June 1st, 1968. She was not born deaf and blind. When she was about 19 months old, she came down with a mysterious high fever, which left her totally cut off from her family and the outer world. While desperately searching for help, her parents were advised to consult a Dr. Alexander Graham Bell, a doctor and teacher for the deaf. We know him best for his invention of the telephone. Keller was about 6 years old when that first meeting took place, and as he held her on his knee, she immediately felt the tenderness and sympathy which endeared Dr. Bell. She loved him at once. It was a love and friendship that lasted a lifetime. It was Dr. Bell who led them to the Perkins Institution for the Blind, ultimately to her teacher and lifelong companion, Anne Sullivan, who was also visually impaired herself. Between the ages of 7 and 20, Helen enlarged the meaning of the word heroism. After learning the manual alphabet and following her soul's sudden awakening of putting the letters together to form words, as she explored the world with her hands, to learn the names of every object she touched, so did her delight of the world grow. At the beginning, she was only a little mass of possibilities. She asked few questions. But as her knowledge of things grew and she learned more and more words, so did her field of inquiry. Thus she began to read. At first she had only a few books in raised print, a collection of stories for children, and a book about the earth called Our World, which she read over and over again until the words were completely worn down. Words fascinated her. She would spend hours in the library poring over the pages, devouring and retaining many words and sentences. Keller had a strong love for poetry, especially Shakespeare. Next to poetry was her love of history. Keller accredits her reading of books to being so much more to her education than that of others. Keller had known for a long time that people around her used a different form of communication other than the manual alphabet, which had always left her with a sense of restraint. This feeling began to agitate her. At the age of 10, when she learned about this girl in Norway who was also deaf and blind who had been taught to speak, as she put it, became on fire with eagerness and resolved that she too would speak. But she did. By the time she was 13, she had read the histories of Greece, Rome, and the U.S., and started studying and speaking French, Latin, and German at the School for the Deaf in New York City. Keller went on to be the first blind person to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree at the age of 24. She was a world-renowned American author with a total of 14 books, plus several articles, a political activist, and lecturer. She traveled in 39 countries, visiting Japan several times on behalf of the blind and people with disabilities. She was so loved and admired by the Japanese people that on one visit, after mentioning to a Japanese person that she would like to have an Akita dog, she was given one. Unfortunately, he died of canine distemper after only 1 month. It was then that his older brother was presented to her as an official gift from the Japanese government in July of 1938. Keller is accredited to having introduced the Akita to the U.S. through these two dogs. Keller has several streets named after her around the world. And of course there's the movie The Miracle Worker, a story based on her life.